It was a wet and cold evening in 15 AD. The Roman campaigning season was running to its end. Somewhere north of the Rhine, the Roman commander Caecina and his senior commanders pondered their dire situation. Local tribes surrounded their makeshift camp. For days, their retreat had been constantly hampered by skirmishes and ambushes. Most of his soldiers had not slept for at least 2 days, and during earlier fights, many lives and equipment was lost. Several men relived the Teutoburg disaster 6 years earlier, where Roman officer Arminius betrayed Rome and destroyed 3 legions in an ambush. From the dense woodlands, a pair of eyes kept looking at Caecina's camp. It was Arminius, and he not only remembered his victory 6 years ago, he was very eager to add another victory to that list. When in 9 AD news of the shocking defeat at Teutoburg Forest reached Emperor Augustus, he became panicked. He remembered the invasions by the Germanic Cimbri a few decades earlier. A united front of Germanic tribes could pose a significant threat against Rome itself. He called for volunteers, but when these did not answer the call, he instituted conscription. In total, he sent 3 additional legions to augment the northern defenses. Months later, as the frontiers were protected and any Germanic invasion failed to materialize, the Romans began planning their vengeance. In 10 AD, Augustus's heir designate, Tiberius, took up command in the north. Arminius too understood the Romans were a force to be reckoned with, especially when seeking revenge. But to his dismay, the direct aftermath of the victory of Teutoburg saw conflict among tribes take over. They were united in their collective hatred of Rome, but worked together anecdotally at best. In the next campaigning seasons, Romans invaded the Germanic lands without occupying them. Instead, they laid waste to any settlements they came across, intending to instill as much terror in the population as possible. There was no silver lining to the Roman campaigns, and without capturing too much booty, the campaigns were a drain of resources and manpower. This changed in 13 AD. That year, the supreme command of the regional armies fell to the young commander Germanicus, Tiberius's adoptive son. His name referred to his legendary father Drusus, who commanded the first Roman armies invading Germania decades earlier. As Tiberius prepared for his new post in Illyricum, news reached him of Emperor Augustus falling ill. After a brief, turbulent period of succession, Tiberius succeeded the emperor. News of Augustus's death reached the legions stationed at Germania's border as well. Rebellions broke out about unpaid salaries. Germanicus acted fast. He increased the pay of his legionaries out of his own pocket. Then he launched his first campaign north of the Rhine. He used armies from both Germania Inferior and Superior. In total, this numbered around 8 legions excluding auxiliaries. They invaded the territories of the Marshy and left an area of 50 miles ravaged with fire and sword. Defeating an ambush on their way back, the first campaign can be considered a moderate success, without any noteworthy casualties or battles for the Romans. The following campaign season commenced in spring 15 AD. This year, Germanicus geared his attention towards the Chatti. The Roman army was split in two, with Aulus Caecina Severus commanding 4 legions and 5,000 auxiliaries. Caecina was a tough and fearless leader with decades of experience. Germanicus commanded 4 legions and around 10,000 auxiliaries. The Chatti did not expect Rome's might, and for days Germanicus ravaged their towns, villages, and even their capital. Meanwhile, Caecina held the Cherusci and the marshy tribes at bay. The Roman incursions rallied more tribes to Arminius' side, but one family member, his father-in-law Segestes, remained a loyal ally to Rome. Not being able to reach the Romans plundering the Chatti, Arminius' anger turned against Segestes. When he captured him at a certain point, Segestes sent his son to request help from the Romans. Germanicus wanted to encourage all dissent within Arminius' ranks. Saving Segestes would be a great victory for Rome and hopefully have many men follow his example. A flexible expeditionary force joined Segestes' son. Their surprise arrival led to a swift release of him and the capture of his daughter Thusnelda, doubling as Arminius' pregnant wife. This angered Arminius incredibly. Germanicus meanwhile ordered his army to raise the Brutteri territory. Doing so with considerable success, his army reached the site of the Teutoburg disaster 6 years earlier. Reportedly, Germanicus ordered the reburial of the remains they found, and there were plenty. Bones of men and horses littered the forest, bits of weapons amongst them. Many trees were adorned with pinned-on heads of those soldiers unfortunate enough to be sacrificed in that manner. After reburying many remains, the Roman thirst for Arminius' blood was stronger than ever. It just so happened that Arminius too was preparing for revenge. He managed to gather warriors from many tribes, even those previously thought to be pro-Roman. Besides several attempted ambushes, no decisive battle materialized as the end of the campaigning season approached. Germanicus organized the withdrawal from Germania. With half of his army, he set out to take a northern route and ordered Caecina to return along a trail known as the Long Bridges, or Pontes Longi. This famous route traversed through marshy terrain. Over the years, Romans built causeways and bridges to navigate the territory. It is safe to say many of these were destroyed if left unguarded. With Caecina's army moving in that direction, Arminius knew exactly what route they were about to take. Taking shortcuts, he reached the bridges before Caecina. His warriors took their positions in the forest and on top of hills overlooking the marshes. Caecina's army numbered around 4 legions, 5,000 auxiliaries, and some levied locals. In addition, several baggage trains traveled with them. In total, the Roman army must have numbered around 30,000. Unfortunately for the Romans, the causeways indeed were broken down, either by nature or sabotage. To cross the marshy area, Caecina ordered his men to repair the bridges. He split up his army, with part of the soldiers repairing the bridges and others standing guard to cover the working party. Caecina was well aware of the vulnerability of his army, mainly because they were in a boggy plain, hampering traditional army formations. His feelings were reinforced when small bands of warriors charged from the surrounding woodlands, pestering the Romans. Minor skirmishes at best followed. It went on like this throughout the entire day. Germanic bands of warriors would leap out of the woods or descend from the surrounding hills. They would throw javelins and stones or charge into the Romans. Using nature to his advantage, Arminius ordered his warriors to redirect a stream into the plain. With the water tide rising, the Romans had even more difficulty maintaining formations against the mobile and flexible German warriors. As night fell, Tacitus writes, several legionaries were already close to breaking. They built their camp in the plain. Still, they would not be able to sleep in their wet tents, knowing they were entirely surrounded. An atmosphere of uncomfortable dread hovered above the quiet Roman camp. Its guards saw smoke rise from the audibly celebrating German encampments. They knew they had the upper hand. The Romans knew it as well. The following day, Caecina ordered his army to form an infantry square around the baggage train. In theory, this was probably the best way to protect the wagons. However, the 2 vanguard legions moved at a much faster pace. As a result, the heavy wagons got their wheels stuck in the mud. Then, as the vanguard reached a wide open plain across the marshes, the baggage train was left exposed. Arminius, closely monitoring from a distance, saw the fault in Rome's formation. He ordered his warriors to charge and launched a massive attack against the wagons and the rearguard. The Germanic warriors clashed with the legionaries. There was no other way for the Romans but forward, and during the ferocious and brutal fighting across the marshes, the baggage train slowly moved towards the open plain. The unprotected areas were plundered by the warriors, who often chose to loot over actual fighting. Many soldiers decided to leave the wagons behind, instead focusing on getting themselves to safety. In the chaotic battle, Caecina's horse threw him off, and if it weren't for some legionaries thinking on their feet and protecting their commander, he would undoubtedly have been slain. After many casualties on both sides, only a few baggage wagons and most legionaries reached the open plain across the marshes. The vanguard legions had already secured the plain and took their strategic positions. The Germanic warriors understood facing the Romans in open battle was a bad idea. In turn, they retreated to their woods. Although the Germanic warriors retreated, the Romans could not rest. They dug a ditch and constructed their base camp behind it. It was nothing more than a traditional square structure with 4 entrances and a rampart with the tents inside. As night fell, the Romans rightly were exhausted. They treated the wounded, and it was surprising if a soldier managed to sleep under these conditions. After a horse broke free and caused a panic, even those who managed to get some shot at were rudely awakened. Only thanks to Caecina's interference did he prevent a mass rout from the camp. Meanwhile, outside the camp, Arminius and other tribal chieftains figured they had already won the battle. Caecina's army was stuck without reinforcements in deeply hostile territory. The Romans had not slept for 2 days, and the skirmishes wore down the discipline and morale. The chiefs had to decide how they would finish them off. Arminius proposed to wait until Caecina and his army marched through the thick woodlands again. But other chieftains disagreed. One of them, Arminius' uncle, suggested they let their warriors surround the camp and slowly close in. Arminius' tactic was overruled. The following morning saw a circle of warriors slowly move in on the base camp. Unfortunately for them, this is exactly what Caecina prepared for. All infantry were positioned behind the 4 gates within the Roman camp, ready to burst out and take on the fight. Caecina himself stood in the front line, raising the morale of his men. He kept his legionaries quiet until the warriors closed in. Then, when the warriors were close enough so that escape was nearly impossible, he gave the order. Trumpets sounded and battle cries filled the air. A constant stream of Roman soldiers poured from the 4 gates, charging at the surprised and confused warriors. Heavy combat ensued, with the momentum clearly being in Rome's favor. Many warriors were slaughtered during the hours of heavy combat. Nearing the end of the day, the battle turned more into a rout, with the warriors fleeing to the woodlands and the Romans giving chase. Although traditionally the battle was considered a Roman victory, recent historical analysis argue it was more of an indecisive stalemate, especially because the Roman casualties numbered approximately 1/3 of their total army, not to mention the loss of equipment and animals. Caecina and his men did not suffer any more trouble on their way back to the Rhine. Germanicus also made it home safely, but not before running into a severe flood along the Dutch coast, and, well, panic spread across the Rhine. Reports of a supposed Roman defeat reached outposts, and the standing garrisons nearly destroyed all bridges, which provided Germanicus and Caecina with a safe passage. Reportedly, the only reason these bridges were spared was thanks to the interference of Germanicus' wife. The campaign season cannot be considered a success for the Romans. They suffered a considerable number of casualties, not to mention the loss of equipment and animals. Arminius remained in control north of the Rhine and did not suffer a defeat to unsteady his position. This status quo was unacceptable to Germanicus. The following campaigning season, he would surely take revenge against Arminius. This time, every soldier at his disposal would be put to use to once and for all avenge all those Roman soldiers who lost their lives at the hands of Arminius' warriors. Thank you very much for watching this video. If there's a topic, battle, or event you would like to know more about, let me know your thoughts in a comment. I would also really like to thank all my patrons and channel members for their generous support. If you enjoy House of History and want to support my work, consider joining me on Patreon. For just $1 a month, you already gain access to exclusive Patreon videos and behind the scenes. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.